That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
Yo, what's up? Thank you for tuning in today. Thanks to Humans for bringing us in. Thanks to you for supporting the show. I'm Shane Raymer. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. We're coming to you live from San Diego at the Innovations in Recovery Conference. Today we're going to be talking with my friend Glen Hadley from Foundations Recovery Network. We're going to get to him in just a moment, but first be sure to check us out at thatsoberguy.com. You can also connect with us on Instagram at real.soberguy and on Twitter at Shane Raymer. Now, I mentioned to you we're coming live from San Diego at Innovations in Recovery. And you might ask, what is Innovations in Recovery? Well, it's about everything new in behavioral health care. And we're here because Foundations invites us out. So big thank you to them. We get to hang back and meet some good people, do some podcasting, and connect and talk about recovery. So we're really happy to be here, and we're stoked to do some podcasting today. Now, we're also here to bring you some of the top experts and recovery advocates and help inform you on what the heck is going on in the treatment industry, as well as have some fun and, of course, spread the good word. For more information about Innovations in Recovery and other Foundations events, you can go to foundationsevents.com. Once again, that's foundationsevents.com. Last thing real quick, and we're going to get to Glen. Finding the right treatment for addiction and mental health can be tough. And that's why Sober Guys continue to partner with Foundations Recovery Network. And because Foundations stays true to their mission, holds high ethical standards, and provides treatment in a nationwide network of residential and outpatient facilities. So if you or a loved one needs help, here's what you can do. You can go to foundationshelp.com/soberguy, or you can call 833-81-SOBER. That's 833-81-SOBER. And you can talk with an admissions coordinator about treatment options. They can answer any questions for you. They're great people, and I promise you they'll take care of you. So one more time, that's foundationshelp.com/soberguy, or 833, you can call 833-81-SOBER. Glen Hadley, we just met in a bathroom at a Foundations Recovery conference introduced by Jordan. So good to meet you, man, and welcome to Sober Guy, bro.
Yeah, man, glad to be here. And, very strange meeting, but, that's the way it works sometimes, right?
It is, man. It is. It's funny. And I always say, I just got to roll with it, man. Like, I feel like, those moments are provided sometimes to make connections, to jump on opportunities, to meet cool people, and you got to be open to it at the same time,
Absolutely. That's how it kind of works in this deal, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of show up and like, I wonder where we're going to go today. Oh, all right. This is where we're going to go today.
Here we are.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite sayings. My sponsor and I talk about that a lot. Let me just show up today. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to have any expectations. But if I show up and I try to do the next right thing, all the rest of the stuff will fall in place most of the time. And if it doesn't, at least I can, take a step back and call my sponsor.
Man, absolutely. And trying to not manage the expectations, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the hard part. Like I get the plan and everything's ready to go and everything, but I want it to look a certain way whenever I actually do the work, know, and it's just, it doesn't work out that way. Yeah. Whenever I let go of that, man, life is good. It's so good.
Letting go, that's one of my favorite things. Like that's like practicing that powerlessness. Like, let me just let go of today, and I'm going to roll with the punches. Although one of my favorite quotes, and I've said this often on the show, is by Mike Tyson. He said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I said, all right, well, wait a second. Yeah, that's really true. So I need to be able to adjust at the same time. But man, so let's learn a little bit about you, Glen. I know, man, you just jumped in with Foundations. We talked a little bit before. You're from Austin, or at least you live in Austin now, and you're getting ready to head out to Nashville. Maybe let's start with a little bit about yourself. I know you're in recovery too. Maybe start there, man.
Sure. Well, I'm in recovery from alcoholism, but also I'm a recovering tennis pro. I grew up playing tennis and played professional tennis for a number of years, but. My alcoholism didn't care. It really didn't care that I was a tennis pro. It actually, the fact that I grew up with this mentality that if I just work hard enough at something, I can achieve anything. That actually worked against me against my alcoholism, because the worse that it got, the harder I worked at it, trying to manage and control it, and that just didn't work. And so finally, just broke and came to a place where I was willing to take help, and that's where it really did change in a positive way, because I'm good at taking coaching, right? And so when I found a sponsor and my sponsor said, do this, this, and this, man, I was like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. And I call him back like 3 hours later. I did this, and this. Now what's next, And he was like, yeah, this level of willingness is a little something I'm not used to, Like, man, I'm ready to go. I want to get sober. Like, I want to be 20 years sober today. Come on, you know?
Well, you had been coached for so long, I'm assuming, being a tennis pro. I mean, so did the drinking start to creep in as you were still playing tennis, or did this come afterwards, or was there a certain amount of pressure you're dealing with, I'm sure?
No, I mean, like, so I played my first professional tennis tournament at the age of 15, and the problem is that, you know, even though I'm playing this sport professionally, like, tennis was not exactly where I was living in East Texas, was not exactly looked on as a real sport, right? Like, football was king there. So the thing is, I'm playing this sport professionally in high school, and then at the same time, my peers are thinking less of me, or at least I see them as thinking less of me, you know, and they're talking, you know, smack about the fact that I play tennis. And so I really want to fit in. And so what were these kids doing? Like, they're out there throwing parties, hanging out, getting loaded and stuff like that. And so even though I didn't really want to get involved in that life, I really wanted to be cool. And so I started hanging with them, and I started drinking, and it changed my life. And so, like, I tell you, I played first tournament, my first professional tournament at 15, took my first drink at 16, and I'm homeless on the streets at 20. Like, living,
that happened fast.
I mean, it was quick, just like that. And so it wasn't willpower, you know, but it took me down. Because, like, somewhere along the lines, like, playing tennis all day and drinking all night, and playing tennis all day and drinking all night, pretty soon the drinking starts to drink into the day while I'm playing tennis. Which is not a healthy thing. And so, like, dude,
tennis is fucking hard.
Like,
it is. I'm not like a professional. I haven't played a whole ton of tennis before. But we've whacked it around a few times. I remember growing up, dude. It is like you have to be at your agility, your endurance. I mean, like, it is a hard ass sport, man. I think you're right. It doesn't really get the credit other than through John McEnroe, because who doesn't know John McEnroe, right? That, you know, it was on the line. That's like one of the classic things. But, dude, like, that's not an easy thing to kind of fall into that peer pressure, I guess, too, to try to fit in. I hear that a lot, too. Like, and I know I went through that. I just want to feel comfortable. I want to feel like me. And if I don't know who I am, like, that was turned to some drinking, and then there it is, you know?
Sure. And, like, in tennis, it's such an individual sport. There's no team. Like, there's no, like, camaraderie like or golf, anything like that. Right. Like, when you're out there, like everything, it falls on your shoulders. The wins fall on your shoulders, which is a great deal, but the losses do also, and there's no one to blame except yourself. And so that's a very lonely place for someone to grow up.
Were you really hard on yourself?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, brutal.
Is that your own worst enemy? That's how I am too.
I mean, but I tend to sponsor guys that are like that too, right? The guys that come in and they're just like, just beating themselves up over. I'm like, dude, like, you just come on, it's all good. You know,
it's all good. Be easy.
And then I hear myself saying that, like, I need to take that too.
It's funny, man. We got to learn to take our own advice sometimes, bro. It happens so often. So you get to 20, you're homeless on the street. What happens from there?
Well, so here's the funny thing, and I like to throw this out there because I don't want anybody to do this, but I mean, it's your own journey. So, like, I decided the tennis and the drinking was getting a little too hard to do together, and so the tennis thing had to go, and so I did what any self-respecting alcoholic would do, and I started DJing, you know, because I think that works, and so I got into the whole rave scene and did that, and
party while you're working.
I mean, it was great, you know. The problem is, like, and this sounds as sick as it is, like, I couldn't even do that. My drinking and drug usage got so bad. Even in that, I couldn't do that. I mean, I can remember being on stage in front of thousands of people and literally wanting to hide, you know, like, and that's a bad place to be, right? Like, I was in a show in Dallas once, and I'd been up for a couple days, and was getting real sketchy, and I was just trying to get away, just trying to get through the set, and I can remember halfway through the set, and I killed the volume to the whole place.
Oh no!
And, like, I'm just staring up there like, oh my gosh,
everyone's
what?
Like,
wow. What? Yeah. And the sound guy had to come turn it back up, you know?
You're still bobbing your head at least.
Yeah, I was like, this is not good, you know? And I walked off that stage and I was like, it's the DJing. That's what the difference is. I got to quit this. And so I quit that. You know, it's like every time something came up that I was like really getting some traction in,
I see.
I had to quit because my drinking and drug usage got the best of it.
Did you think, like, for the example with being a DJ, were you kind of equating the issues that was happening to DJing, or were you saying that it was a problem because of the drug use? Were you able to differentiate that yet? Or
not
was
at the
still
time.
Just like,
no, it was like, it's the lifestyle. That's what it was.
It's not me.
It can't be me, and it sure can't be the drinking, right? Because like the drinking wasn't the problem. Like that, I was like, how can you can't take this away. It's not a big deal, right? It's because I'm traveling all over and I'm staying up all night in this work, this job. Forget like, the fact that I'm doing crystal methamphetamine all night, that's not the problem either.
So you can party and
sure. Yeah. It's the job.
Yeah.
And so like I quit doing that. And when you're quitting everything but not addressing the problem, like for me, eventually it just got to the point where I'm living in the bathroom of an apartment center's pool house.
Wow.
Like, and just like it was everybody else, everything else. And so that's where it brought me.
What was that moment, or did you have a moment where, it kind of clicked for you and maybe you started to look at it from some personal responsibility perspective and say like, damn, like this sucks. Like I got a lot more potential than this. Like what the hell am I doing with my life? Like what did that look like for you?
Well, so like the beauty of it is that like whenever I was homeless and I walked like 300 miles to go from city to city once just because
this is when you were in Texas still.
I lived in Texas and then I walked to Lake Charles, Louisiana one time because like it was where I was living, right? Because that bathroom floor was hard, Like, it's
a long way, right?
It's a long freaking way, right? It's like 300 miles.
Damn,
like,
dude, you're like
that's a long walk, right?
Man, growing a beard.
Yeah, I was not running; I was walking. But here's the thing: like I figured at that point, I was still like, I still had some kick, and I was still not willing to look at myself.
Yeah.
And so I started doing what I saw people around me doing that were successful, and they had like, the job, they had the wife, the kids, the house, like all that stuff, and so. At that point, I said, all right, I'm going to go get that stuff. And because I had some pretty decent willpower, I started collecting those things. I started to like actually get a real career and got back into coaching. And I got the wife and the kids and the house and the cars and built up a pretty nice life for myself. The problem was I still didn't look at my drinking. I still didn't look at my drug usage. And so here I was like many years removed, right, in 2013. Here I am, and I'm hitting the same place that I was when I was homeless.
Wow.
I was beaten and broken, completely done. Everybody was leaving. Now all those things that I had acquired were leaving.
Let's say you had all the stuff.
Yeah, I had all the stuff, and I felt the exact same as when I had nothing,
It's funny. I heard a friend of mine say one time, he said that a man's soul is so big that no amount of possessions, stuff, whatever, it can never be fulfilled and satisfied. It can only be fulfilled by the love of God, like straight up. Like, and I've always stuck with me. Like, no matter how successful I ever am or what, even my family is obviously number one, but like, there's nothing that's ever going to fulfill that except that just knowing that like there's something higher than me. And I'm very open about on the show, like, we talk about all different programs, and I'm not a believer that there's only one way to do it. Everyone's different. So, whatever your God is out there, that you're listening, like something higher than us, for me at least, that's what fulfills me. You know what I mean? When I can be on that plane. So you had totally no connection with that at this time, right?
No, because the thing is, I'm still focused outwardly.
Yes.
And that's been a common thing. I'm always looking outside of myself.
Yeah.
To fix what's going on the inside. And here's the problem that I find, that whether I have absolutely nothing outside and I'm staring at nothingness, or I have all of these things outside and I'm staring at all these things, I'm still distracted from the true power that is growing within me, that's managed to keep me sober, right? Yeah, and when finally like all that stuff was gone again and I was broken down and the only person I had left to look at was me, and I turned inward, that's whenever I connected with that power. Come to find out, it was always there.
Yeah.
It was always there, right? I'm like, oh man, this is that thing that I was so like, I'm looking at that voice of right and wrong, right? That thing, like when I grew up, like my parents never had to tell me don't smoke crack. They didn't have to do that, right?
They don't need to.
But I knew innately, like that's probably not the best thing for me. I still went and did it anyway. But I knew that's not right, and so where did that come from? And I started digging into that and started listening to that voice and started to like try to find that part of me that was in touch with that power. And come to find out, it was the more stuff I had, the less I could hear that.
Yeah, that's good, man. It's real good. So do you still play tennis at all now? Is that
I do. I do still play. I'm actually coming out of the tennis industry to work with foundations. I currently I run a tennis facility in Austin, Texas, and then I have a number of large tennis events and fundraisers that that I'm the director for. And so I'm still got my hands in some of that.
That's good.
But trying to bring some of the event stuff that I also, I grew up throwing raves and concerts and things of that nature. So bringing those two worlds together into this venue here and seeing if we can't make a little difference and have some fun.
And that's got to be cool for you now after experiencing that. You obviously have a gift for events and for people. Connections, showmanship, I'm sure is probably a part of it too, man. I mean, that's part of events, but now you get to do it in a positive light and you get to bring some hope and some goodness to some people out there in this kind of industry, which is pretty neat. Absolutely.
I will tell you, one of the highlights of my life, like not just professional life, but my life, was standing on the stage at in Houston when we had the Super Bowl there a few years ago. And I was able to do a concert called Sober Bowl Superfest down there, and being able to stand on the stage at the end of that concert after we brought hope to so many people, and really just brought awareness around the disease that we all are in this industry are dealing with. Totally. To be able to stand up there and pray with everybody.
Wow.
It didn't matter what walk of life they came from. It didn't matter what was in their bank account. Nothing. Everybody was up there, bowed their heads and prayed. It was a pretty dang cool deal. Just awesome.
That is cool too, because the only football game that I even attempted to watch this whole year was the Super Bowl, which was absolutely boring. But the one thing I noticed, and I noticed it every year, but for some reason more this year than any other, was the beer ads. There was so many beer ads. So for you to kind of take that outward in that environment, that's pretty cool too.
Well, it goes to show, like for me, the drugs and the alcohol were never really the problem, right? Like they really solved something that was really broken in me, and the problem with it was that I was kind of allergic to it. I didn't react normally to it. Yeah. That was really the problem. And I think that for people that can drink and even drugs successfully, that's great. Like have at it. But for me and my brothers and sisters in recovery, like that's just not our story.
Yeah.
And so what can I do to help that? Like where can I be most useful? And I think it's in this venue.
That's so good, man, because I think that a lot of people feel like that alcohol or drugs can be demonized, and that's the problem. And you're right, man. It's a me problem. It comes from within. It's something that I have to deal with. That's just the tool. There's plenty of people out there who can have one or two beers. I have no fucking idea how they do it.
No, not
I
at
don't
all.
get it, but like people can do it, and they do it responsibly, and that is great. That's what it's that's what it's for, I guess. But let's I know I could go down that hole.
Yeah, I know, right?
I know, right? We could go there all day, I'm sure.
Yeah, but then I ended up talking about relationships, and that's probably we don't have enough time on this show. Like, yeah,
that'll be for another
mini series.
Yeah, man. So let's do two things. I want to get into talking about what you're going to be doing with foundations, what that looks like, how you came aboard. I think that's kind of a cool story, how it happened very organically. Before we do that, I just kind of wanted to find out about what your recovery program looks like right now. Like, what do you do, man? Like, how you staying sober? Like, what's something you can send out to those out there listening? Maybe a little tip or something that you did that might help someone else.
I think the biggest thing for me is that I went through a treatment program and then went to aftercare afterwards and did the whole deal, right? And so as I transitioned through that and into my own recovery, I tried to emulate what I had done in treatment in my life. And so what I did was I took the groups where we went to different groups and learned different information about the steps about recovery and what that looked like. I substituted meetings for those groups. And so I would go in the very beginning, especially, like I would go to a couple meetings a day. And then I would come early. I'd stay late. I'd hang out and listen. I'd talk to people. I cleaned up a lot, right? I made a lot of coffee, did all those things, right?
Yeah, that's
I
good.
drank a lot of coffee too. But so I did that. And through that, like my world started to open up in recovery, and so I started to do camp outs and I do sober concerts. I'd started like just bringing the things that I like to do leading into that, and I brought it into my sober world, and I built my life out of my sober community, and I think that was so helpful because whenever I did transition and I went back into the tennis space and started coaching again and started managing a club and those kinds of things. I still brought that into that world, and I can tell you that there were so many times where a member would come in the morning and he'd shut my door and say, "Hey, we need to talk. Like my son is really struggling. he or she needs help. Like, what do I do?
Wow.
You know, I can't tell you how many times I brought families together in my office there.
That's awesome.
You know, so that's important to me. My daily recovery life still looks like going to meetings, carrying the message. I talk to my sponsor often. I put on recovery conferences, and I sponsor a lot of guys, whether it's there in the Austin area or remotely.
I like what you're saying too about doing stuff. I know for me and for a lot of the people that that I'm friends with and get to talk to, the fear of getting sober has a lot to do with, well, what the hell am I going to do now? Because everything I've done has revolved around alcohol or drugs. So that was my fun, you know. And my good buddy Seth, we've talked. We do backpacking. So, man, we've been talking a lot lately. Like, man, it'd be so awesome to do like this like sober backpacking trip or something. You know, it sounds like you've been doing some of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Keeping people out, letting them know that like, hey, there's a life outside of alcohol and drugs. There's plenty of stuff you can do. You can have a great time. And guess what? You get to remember it the next day.
Yeah. And, you know, talking to them about the fact that, you know, the person that comes on the trip for the first time, you're going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's different, you know, like going to do a sober camp out where there's DJs playing, where there's lasers, where there's like, you know, barbecue going on around like out at the lake.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's what we do. Right. And so like talking to them saying you're going to be uncomfortable and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like, because we're not used to doing that sober. We're not used to being in that environment sober. But then come to think of it, like going to work the first time sober, were you uncomfortable? Yeah. You know, but you still suit up and go to work, right?
That's right.
I mean, and it's very much like that in our recovery and having fun, like suit up and go. One of the best things that we do every year, I have a friend of mine, and we go on this man trip, okay? And he throws his son in the car. I throw my boys in the car.
Nice.
And we drive, and we have very little plan whatsoever. We usually take 10 days, 2 weeks, and we drive. And so like last year on this man trip, we had no plan, and we ended up going to Meteor Crater, Arizona. We went to the Grand Canyon. We ended up in Moab, Utah.
Wow.
And then went to Rocky Mountain National Park. Like, no clue, no plan.
Yeah.
When we woke up in the morning, we didn't know where we were going to be that night, and it was amazing. And we had just a phenomenal trip. But it takes some getting used to do that.
Yep. Powerlessness,
you know?
man. Just rolling with it.
Yeah.
Rolling with it. I love it. I bet your boys love that too, man.
They do. It's different for them, you know. They're like the ones that come with me are 17 and 15, and so like we'll be driving, and I'll be like, "Look at this! How cool is this?" Right? And they're just like on their phone. Then I tell them, "Put that down," and they're like, "Why? Look!" And they got a picture of it on their phone.
Oh,
you know,
man. No, it's so different, huh?
It is. It's different.
That's cool,
different.
Man. That's cool. So tell us a little bit about Foundations, man. What are you going to be doing? What's that looking like for? It's pretty exciting, man. I know it happened real organically. We talked before, like I said, and it was pretty neat.
Yeah, it's just a cool deal. I'm coming on as the sales and events manager for Foundations, and get a chance to bring my events background and, you know, my recovery background to this deal, you know, and really try to help people and create a space where professionals and kind of needle movers in this industry can come together and try to move the needle, you know, because that's really what it's about.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. It was very organic, like you said. Matt Fury, who's the CEO of Foundations, he and I got to know each other through the Sober Bowl Superfest in Houston.
Nice.
And I tell you, all that came about just because I was willing to be present and show up whenever when God kind of put a situation in front of me. I said hello and struck up a conversation, and 6 months later, we're doing a concert at the Super Bowl with NFL players, NBA players, all of these music artists that are in recovery and just carrying the message, right?
That's cool, man.
And because of that, I get to be here today and hang out with you guys and just, you know, live this life, right?
Yeah. I think it's a great example of, you know, you mentioned it. I think I mentioned it even too, of just showing up, man. We do the next right thing. Things fall into place just like they're supposed to. And I know when I'm in that space, you know, not trying to control stuff, not trying to have expectations, man, my days seem to be a lot easier.
Absolutely. And here's one thing I just want to add with this is that whenever it gets difficult between my ears, I need to sit quiet and dig into that. Like, what am I doing up there? If it's difficult outside, like if the steps are difficult or if there's some work that I need to do that's maybe hard work, like that's fine. Yeah. Dig into that. That's good. But like when it gets difficult between my ears, I need to slow down for a minute because like there's going to be hard work in anything that we do. no matter what, right? There's going to be some hard work. It doesn't mean that I shy away and just sit back on my couch and go, God's got it. I can just sit here and let it happen and wash. Like, I'm going to let success wash over me today. No, like that's not the way that it works, right? Like, there is some work that I have to do, but when it gets difficult in my head, then that's usually of me and that's not of God.
Yeah, that's good, man. It's so good. Yeah, it's like that balance of, the balance of I almost said staying busy, but it's not staying busy, but it's just doing the work, man. Just doing the work, putting in work. I had that sign up actually on my studio for a long time at it, and I probably need to put it back up. It just said, put in work. Like, do the work, man. Like, people, well, how do I stay sober? Well, are you going to meetings? Do you have a spot? Like, there's really kind of a simple formula to it, and you got to do the work in order to, at least for me, I gotta stick to that too. That's what I got to do, and that helps to keep me sober. But dude, it's been really great to meet you, man. Like, really cool. I love how that happens, dude. The Hotel Del Coronado bathroom, I meet Glen. We make sure to wash our hands and then shake hands afterwards. Man, dude, really, really cool, man. Anything you want to add before we take off today?
The last thing I will say is this, man, is that you couldn't have told me that I would be here 6 years ago. You just couldn't have. And I didn't really manage or make any of this happen. It was more of opportunity presented itself, and I did the work. And that's all I'd say.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, congratulations on the new gig, bro.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be seeing each other around, and it's good to have you on the podcast, man. Thanks, Glen.
That is a pleasure. Thank you.
Check us out at thatsoberguy.com. You can connect with us on Instagram at realthatsoberguy, at Shane Raymer on Twitter. We're coming to you live from Innovations in Recovery, San Diego. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Peace, love, and respect, and keep your blood clean.
So keep my head on straight. I've been trying to keep my head on straight. You still say that I don't know anything about you. Oh, I don't know anything about you, but I know what you do in the back room. And you still say that I don't know anything about you.